Hello, folks. I just want to talk about some of the games of E3 because, well, that's what everybody does. Now everybody talks about it on their own channels because everybody's totally interested in everybody else's opinion. So I'm not going to talk about all the games, and I'm not even going to talk about all the major games. I'm going to talk about the games that I have at least a little bit of interest in. If you don't hear me talk about a game, it's either because I forgot it or more likely I just don't care. Like I'm not going to be talking about Halo 5 or Star Wars Battlefront, which I know I never played original Battlefront, so I have no love to the series, but anyway, let's talk about the games that we're going to actually talk about. First off, and these will be mostly in random order, except for the first one, Fallout 4. My game of the show because I just love Fallout, and that's pretty much the only reason it's at the top. Well, that and it actually does sound pretty damn awesome. I'm really interested in the stuff that they're talking about, customizing guns, building your own bases, and getting like the fences built up for your base. All that stuff sounds so awesome, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I absolutely have loved all the major Fallouts, all the numbered Fallouts. I've actually never played Tactics, but I've been a big fan of the series ever since Fallout 1. I've considered even doing a Let's Play of the channel, and now my desire to do so has reached its peak. But so I might break down and finally do it. But anyway, Fallout 4 looks phenomenal. People are already bitching about the graphics. Look, did we not just go through this with The Witcher and Watch Dogs, where the game is announced and shows these incredibly insane, amazing graphics, and then the game comes out and they're toned down from what they were because they couldn't find a way to make those graphics work once the game was complete, once they added all the features and the size of the world. And did we not just finish bitching and moaning at these companies for doing that? And now we're gonna bitch that this Fallout, it looks bad. It looks like Fallout 3. It looks like New Vegas, or it looks worse. By the way, if you said it looks worse, you're an idiot. At worst, it looked the same, but it definitely doesn't look worse than Fallout 3 or New Vegas. I actually heard a few people say that. Uh, Hyperbole is the brush of the highly intelligent, I suppose. But regardless, I would rather them show lower end graphics and then find some wiggle room later and bump it up than do the opposite. Don't sit here and bash these companies for showing graphics that are still okay, they're still good, but they're not pushing it. Let them figure it out. Let them see what they do. I would rather them go up than down, right? And of course, there's some wiggle room there. And the game will support mods, so we'll be able to use like HD mods if you're on PC, which of course you are. But the interesting thing is that starting like next year, they said that at least the Xbox One version will support PC created mods. I have no doubt there's going to be limits on that because some of these mods can be quite large, both in hard drive space and how much RAM and extra oomph they take. In particular, the like HD, like higher textures, things like that. The Xbox One's not going to be able to handle that, and maybe it'll let you download them and use them, but it's probably going to start chunking. And I'm sure their support team doesn't want to have to deal with Xbox users who don't understand how this works. And like, I downloaded this HD pack and now my game's really juddery. What's wrong with your game? That's going to be real fun to them to deal with. But they've said they're going to try to get it on PS4, but apparently that's not an easy task. I don't think they've confirmed one way or the other if it's going to PS4. But again, I don't really care. I'm obviously going to be playing it on PC because my PC is way better than Xbox One's going to be, and I'll be able to get HD stuff without any worry about, well, is it supported on the Xbox and all that nonsense. So totally psyched for it. They've already said they're not supporting paid mods, which is a little bit of surprise. I thought they would kind of wait it out and introduce it like maybe as a revamped, but it is coming out in November, so they don't have, I guess, a ton of time to get all that figured. I would not be surprised if they revisit the idea maybe a year from now. And again, it'll probably be in a much less in your face method, but I would not be surprised to see it come back. And if not them, Steam will do it somewhere else. But anyway, this is not about paid mods. But yes, totally stoked for Fallout 4. Like, I don't get like super excited about games very often. I don't get super excited about anything. But Fallout 4, that absolutely has me stoked. Needless to say, that will be a day one Let's Play for me. A day one. As a matter of fact, I'm be taking that week off of work. I might even stream it. Probably not, but we'll see. But regardless, Fallout 4 day one purchase. I'm even might soup up my rig a little bit more just to play it that much better. But totally stoked for that. Next game, XCOM 2. Another game I'm very much looking forward to. I loved XCOM 1. I didn't play the old originals. I guess that's technically not true. I played the original DOS game for like 5 minutes, and that game does not tell you anything. It just throws you into a base, and that's it. Like, they tell you jack. So I was like, well, I don't know how to play this, and I'm not reading the instruction book, so oh well. But at any rate, I'm looking forward to that one. I think it's a really cool aspect that they've said that you've lost the war. XCOM lost the war. I think that's really cool. I think that's interesting because that's almost never actually done, right? It's almost like, oh, you know, part 2 of the game, you've won, and now, you know, this new evil has crept up. But now it's like, oh, no, you guys lost, and you have to fight back. I think that's a really cool aspect, and I watched some of the gameplay. The game looks really interesting. It looks like they got rid of that really stupid mechanic where as soon as you uncovered the enemy, they immediately got like a counter move. But now basically you can like sneak, and if they haven't detected you yet, you can kind of get into place. And then once you've opened fire, once they've seen you, then they get like I think what they're calling it is like a scatter, which basically means they get a free move. They don't get to attack, but they do get to move, at least I think. But at any rate, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that one as well. I should have wrote the release dates release dates for all these games. My mistake. My apologies for that. But I think that's coming this year as well. I just know that November is going to be insane this year with Fallout 4, Tomb Raider, and there's a few other things coming out, but November is a usually crazy month for gamers. But regardless, next game I want to talk about is the new Doom. I'll be honest, when they first announced it, I didn't care. Doom 3 was not good. It wasn't terrible, but it really wasn't very good. The whole like trying to make it a scary FPS by having monsters like spawn in front of your face, or you walk into an empty room and suddenly enemies everywhere. That was kind of scary the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. After that, it was like, oh, here's an empty room, or oh, here's a hidden area. As soon as I pick this item up, or as soon as I walk into this room, enemies are going to spawn, and boop, there they were. So, yeah, it was... yeah, it just wasn't good. The flashlight mechanic was awful. The flashlight mechanic was awful. Sorry, I saw something funny. But the flashlight mechanic was terrible. The guns just felt bland and kind of lame. It just wasn't very, very good. But this new Doom looks badass. It's just very bloody, very gory. It's very action-packed like Doom should be. Some people complained it's not quite as fast as like you know, old Doom was, a lot more fast-paced. That's a valid complaint, I think, but I still think it looks fast enough to be quite enjoyable with like the fatalities. And like I say, just it's more like action. It's not switching between guns and creeping around. It's blowing the hell out of demons and getting awesome guns and power-ups and just running around in a bloody mess. That's what Doom's about. So I am glad to see it back in form. So I'm definitely very interested in the next Doom. Next up is Dishonored 2. Now, as an interesting take here, I guess you play I'm assuming you play the whole game as Emily. Somebody suggested somewhere you don't, like she's only a choosable or another character. I didn't pick that up, or I wasn't able to find any solid info on that. I thought you played the whole game as Emily, or as most of it as Emily. which is pretty neat. That's a pretty good choice, given the story of Fallout One or Fallout One. Still got Fallout on the mind. Given the story of Dishonored Two or Dishonored One, son of a bitch. But yeah, I think it makes sense, and I could see. Like I was immediately as soon as they said that she would be playable, in my head I was like, yeah, I could see this happening, especially if you went maybe more down the dark path on Dishonored One. I could see him like training her. I'm assuming he trained her. Maybe that's not even the case, but I think it's relatively safe to say he probably helped to train her with the help of whoever that is from the other world. Excuse me, but yeah, I'm definitely psyched for this. I will say this though, I liked Dishonored, and I even did 2 LPs on it, so it's gonna make it sound really weird that I'm gonna say this, but I didn't think it was that great. Like people talk about Dishonored, like, oh my god, that game was so amazing. I don't get that. Like, I think it was good. I didn't think it was great, which it's still nothing wrong with that. I think it was a solid game. I think my problem with it is it presents itself as a stealth game, and I'm admittedly, very snobby about what I consider to be a stealth game. I don't consider Dishonored to be stealth. Generally, and again, I will admit fully that my definition is very, very specific. But my take on a stealth game is if you get detected by one enemy, you might can fight your way out of it. 2 or more, you're probably in deep crap and you need to run. Dishonored wasn't really like that. I felt like I could run in to a room of 3 to 4 enemies, given that whatever type they are. Obviously not 4 like the walker type enemies, and pretty soundly kill them all. And that's fine. That's not necessarily a negative on the gameplay. In fact, that was fun. In fact, my Let's Plays, one was a stealthy playthrough where I tried not to kill anyone, and then the second one was where I just murdered everyone. And I actually enjoyed the murdery version more, though part of that is because I really think that it was more geared to that. But that's a whole nother ball of wax. But long story short, I'm definitely interested in playing Dishonored 2. Looks good. I like the setting. I'm not really crazy about the graphical style they chose to go with. I don't think it's bad. I just not thrilled with it, but it's all right. So I'm very interested, and if she gets abilities like we saw in the cinematics, I could see that adding some pretty cool aspects of the game. So yeah, definitely looking forward to Dishonored 2. Last Guardian. Now, Last Guardian would be one of those games that I'm not really that interested in and would normally skip it, but I just wanted to talk about it because it's so out of nowhere. Last Guardian has been pretty much the Duke Nukem forever of like this type of game, whatever it is. I guess a puzzle type game. But like, every year will we hear more about Last Guardian? Will we see more Last Guardian? And it became a joke to the point it's like, oh, haha, maybe they'll show Last Guardian, that kind of a thing. With a few like true believers hanging on, and they apparently they got their payoff finally, and they showed Last Guardian. And you know what? Like most people who watched it who didn't really have anything invested in The Last Guardian seemed to be underwhelmed. Like everything I read, or not everything, but what I read from people again who haven't really been keeping up with it, so this was pretty much their first time seeing it, were like, "Oh, this looks kind of boring." Now, obviously, it's hard to judge a game from a trailer that's built for E3, and especially on something like Last Guardian, because it's really hard to tell what parts he was playing that was related to the game. Right, so I'm sure there's puzzle aspects like having to figure out, when to send the dog bird thing, and I'm sure there's intricacies there, and jumping to him and having him catch you. I'm sure there's mechanics there that will be more interesting once we've seen it and once we've got our hands on it. But most people were just kind of like, that looks really slow. I think that this game is probably going to be popular with its niche, but I think people who buy into the hype from the people who were excited about it, I think there's a decent chance they might be disappointed because that's not their type of game. And again, that's fine. I think it does appear to be a more slow paced, deliberate puzzle game where you're kind of soaking in the atmosphere. And I believe it's by the same person who made Shadows of Colossus and Ico. I think I was saying that right. I've not played either of those. I've watched Shadow of Colossus. I know nothing about Ico. But I think it could be interesting. I think it's something I might be interested in. I don't know if I'm going to pick that up at release, but regardless, I think it was worth talking about because it is finally looking like they're making progress and we're moving forward with that one. Speaking of dreams coming true, and also of games that I'm personally not really that interested in, the Final Fantasy VII remaster that people have been asking for at least 10 years. It finally announced, no release date, no gameplay showed. I don't know if I kept up with E3 pretty good for the first 2 days, like day 0 and day 1. And I guess technically day -1 when Bethesda did their thing. But I haven't really kept up with it that much. So new information leaking out. Some of it's I've gotten, some of it I haven't. I've just been kind of busy. But I don't think there's been a release date or even a release year. I think it's pretty safe to say that it's not even going to, I mean, my understanding is, which is limited, is that it might not even come out in 2016. I do find it interesting, though, that they're doing a remaster instead of just doing an HD remake, right? Just slapping some better high-res textures on and calling it a day, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I figured that's what they were going to do as, all right, look, God, shut up. Here's your remaster. Leave us the hell alone. It's interesting that they're going to do a full remaster. I do plan on playing it because Final Fantasy VII is one of those games you hear about. If you're a gamer, you've heard people talk about it if you haven't played it yourself. And people always go on and on about it. And so I want to finally play it myself. I've played the PlayStation 2 version a little bit, like maybe 3 hours in, like I got to the first town. But I never got really too much further past that. And also, somebody bought it for me here yesterday. Thanks, Raven Valor. But I honestly don't know if I'm going to have a chance to play it because it's going to be pretty long and my backlog is already ridiculous. So, and I'd have to read all the text. So, probably not going to happen before the remaster comes out, but you never know. Next, I want to talk about, let's just group them all together. Shenmue. Let's talk about Shenmue 3. Again, a game not that interested in myself, but I hear talked about all the time. It's interesting that a company like Sony used E3 to basically pimp a Kickstarter for any game, but for Shenmue 3. And, it kind of came out later, and I think a lot of people actually kind of assumed this because it made sense logically, was that this Kickstarter wasn't just to fund the game. Like, it wasn't like, well, whatever money we raise from the Kickstarter is what's going to be used for the game. This was more to gauge interest. And if there was enough interest, i.e. if it met and exceeded its goal, then Sony and these other people would put more money in. Because, people think, oh, it got $2 million. Awesome, it's going to get made. You're not going to make... I don't know much about Shenmue. But I do know that the original games were very expensive to make. And that was back in, the mid 90s, that's just not right. Like late 90s, somewhere in there, or early 2000s. I don't know my timelines very good, obviously. Regardless, it was very expensive to make then. So it ain't gonna be any cheaper now. So whatever you make in the Kickstarter is not gonna be enough to fund the game by itself. They use the Kickstarter to basically say, okay, hey, look, big time investors, we raised $2 million in 9 hours. There's obvious interest here. Give us more money so we can make the game. I find this whole thing interesting, though, because from what I've heard and seen, which again, I don't know much about Shenmue, it seems like it's a very niche game. Even if, Sony, for example, says, hey, look, you made $2 million. That's awesome. Here's another 5. Here's another 10, whatever. I have to wonder how much of this will they actually make back? Because if not that many people end up buying it, and the people who did buy it, ended up being the ones who funded the Kickstarter anyway, is it still going to be worth their while? I don't know. I don't pretend to be, a financial wizard or as a businessman. But it's just a question I have to. I'm just curious on. Regardless, I'm glad it's getting made so that fans can be very. I know the fans have been crazy about it, and I know what it's like being a huge Fallout nerd myself. I know what it's like to have your game that you love so much come back, because that's the way I felt when Fallout 3 was announced. I was like, oh my god, they're finally making a new Fallout. So I'm glad it's getting made for them. I hope it can at least come close to living up to their expectations, but we'll see what it's like when it comes out. I might play it when it comes out. It's a big if. We'll see. I'm willing to give it a chance. Next up, I want to talk about Hitman, the new Hitman that's going to just be called Hitman. I think it's a reboot because even Agent 47 looks different, and it looks like they learned their lessons from Absolution. They've really made it clear that the majority, if not all, of your missions will be going after targets and eliminating them, aka like a hitman. They've also stressed that you can do it different ways. You can go in and just blow everybody away. You can be the ultimate silent assassin and like poison his drink to kill the target, things like that. And you'll be you can only get like the best scores if you do the silent killer method, which is the way it should be. So we'll be interested to see how that goes, and I really hope they have learned their lesson, because Absolution was really frustrating. The missions that were good were the ones, again, where you were given a target and you had to take out that target or targets, such as the very first mission where you had to kill like the king of that was probably the best mission, was the very first mission, because there were so many different ways to eliminate that target that I replayed that mission repeatedly, finding different ways to kill him, and it was fun. But the other missions really lacked that. I mean, there was other missions where you did eliminate specific people, but a lot of times there wasn't a lot of choice. They made like a couple ways. But the first one in particular, I swear there was at least 5 to 6 different ways that you could have eliminated the target. And that's what people want with a Hitman game. We don't want running away from the cops for 5 levels or whatever it was. So, and that whole detection system they had was pretty ballsy too. But, and one thing that worries me, and this could completely be me misunderstanding them talking about Hitman, but it sounded like a lot of the missions, or all the missions, were going to be procedurally generated. Like, you would be placed in like certain types, like the city would be generated, and like the layout and the season and the target would be generated, and they would give you the mission. I could have misunderstood that, or maybe that was a separate type, like, okay, you beat the game, now do these like auto-generated missions. I don't know. They've also talked about, going back to that real quick, I don't know if that's the way it is. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want procedurally generated missions. I want them to make a campaign that we go through that almost entirely consists of taking out targets as creatively and silently as possible. Again, the procedural generated thing is fine if it's a side thing. They've also said that it will be contracts, player created contracts, so that's cool. I probably won't ever use that feature, but I really like when they add things like that. So looking forward to a new Agent 47. One thing I don't like about his new look, he seems to smirk a lot. Agent 47 doesn't smirk. He's not a smirker. I not a big fan of that, but whatever. It's just a little thing, and I'll take the smirk if it means we go back to gameplay like Hitman Blood Money. The next game I want to talk about is Uncharted 4. Now, I've only played Uncharted 1, and that was for like 3 hours. I can't stick with console games. I just like, since I'm in front of my PC all the time, I'd just rather play a PC game. So it's hard for me to stick with it. So I've only got like 3 hours in the Uncharted 1, but I really liked what I played. And given how I've recently discovered that I love Tomb Raider after I played the remake of the first game and the reboot, which I also really liked, I learned, I really like this type of gameplay. And like I said, I enjoyed what time I did play Uncharted. So I'm actually looking forward to Uncharted 4, and of course, the Nathan Drake collection, which that's a terrible name since he's going to be in the 4th one, and the Nathan Drake collection is only the HD remakes of 1 through 3. But whatever, I definitely want to get that collection. I do want to play it through, and that probably means I'll let's play all of them probably. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I saw the demo that you're probably watching right now, and that looked pretty intense. It looked pretty cool, so I'm looking forward to that. South Park, The Fractured But Whole. I am looking forward to this as well. I thought the first game was really good. The combat was pretty basic, but it was enough to get by. The comedy and the writing were great. It was just a hilarious game if you're into that South Park like irrelevant. I always say that irreverent style of comedy. I don't. It was just. I thought it was hilarious. Especially the Princess Kenny stuff was killing me. But I think it was a really great game. I absolutely was not expecting another one, especially after the creators, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, said they would not do another game because it was such a pain in the butt. But obviously, they came on stage and said, "Yeah, you know what? Actually, this is not so bad. Let's make another one." So I'm really glad they're doing that. It's interesting they're switching over to more of the Coon and Friends. I don't know if that's going to be the whole game, or if they're going to like a switching back and forth type deal. But regardless, again, that's definitely another day one pickup for me. Next, there's Horizon Zero Dawn, another game that's not really got the greatest title, but this game looks cool. It's a new IP, and it's an interesting premise. It's, the whole post-apocalyptic, but they're kind of like into that rebuilding stage at this point. So they've got primitive weapons and things of that nature. But the animals, or at least some of them, are like robots, or robotic, at least partially. And that's pretty interesting. I'm interested to find out like what's going on with that. Like, why are all the animals robotic with all these wires and circuits and things going on? And the gameplay they showed was pretty cool. Again, obviously it was very staged and whatnot, but it looks like it has potential. I'm definitely interested in that. I'm going to keep an eye on it. Definitely can't say it's a day one purchase, but it's one I'm going to keep watching because it does look pretty cool. Next is Unravel. Now, of course, everybody was losing their damn minds about this game because, oh my god, it's so adorable. I mean, that's great and all, but I really, other than Yarny, or aside from Yarny, I really liked the backgrounds, like the way the backgrounds looked. They just looked very, very real to me. Like, not just graphically, I guess it's hard to describe, not just graphically, but the way things were moving and behaving in the background. It just looked very real to me, and that really pulled me in. I was like, whoa. I wasn't even really paying attention to the gameplay. Honestly, I was looking at those backgrounds. And I did see, of course, a little bit of the background. It looks like it's like a platformer, puzzle platformer type deal. So I'm going to definitely watch this one as well. Of course, one has to talk about the incredibly nervous developer. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch him speak. Not just not making fun of him per se, but obviously he's not used to talking in front of crowds, and English wasn't his native language. So he was just incredibly nervous. Obviously, especially when they like zoomed in on his hands, he was shaking a lot. But you know what? And a lot of people made this point, and to some point, I agree that they would rather see incredibly nervous, kind of stumbling over their words, uncomfortable developer who's passionate about the project, as opposed to an executive who's sleek and knows the right words and doesn't he's very well spoken, but it comes off as scripted, right? It just comes off as very scripted. Look at our awesome game with amazing synergy between the characters where they maximize their impact of, blah, that, what I'm talking about. And to a point, I can agree. I think there's a happy medium. I think you can probably get somebody who's passionate about the project who you're not like feeling bad for as they give the presentation. But, we're kind of getting off the path. But yeah, Unravel looks interesting. Definitely going to watch that one as well. Next up, Transformers. These are the 80s Transformers. So first of all, obviously superior to everything else. The Transformers that I grew up with. It's made by Platinum. So that's another great thing. Platinum, who made Bayonetta, Metal Gear Solid Revengeance, or Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, sorry. The Avatar game, other games like that. I think they made Wonderful 101 too, I think. But regardless, uh, it looks good. Uh, my biggest complaint is they they like led me on. They're like, yeah, you can play whatever transformer you want, and I was like, hell yeah, Soundwave, here I come. And they're like, oh, but you can only play Autobots. I'm like, oh, come on, like really? Like that's really unfortunate to hear. Like I would have, I mean, I understand from a story perspective, it'd be very difficult to let me just pick one side or the other because they'd have to have either A, have two separate stories, or B, have the typical there's some greater evil that even that that is so threatening that the good guys and the bad guys team up to fight it together. And honestly, I would have rather them went with that cliche just so I could play Decepticons, or at least like maybe down the road make a second like a second game where we get to play as the Decepticons. Like there's Autobots get too much love. Screw the Autobots and screw Optimus Prime. Yes, I said it. I was happy when Optimus Prime died in the movie. How do you like them apples, bitch? Yeah, anyway, we get a little too excited about Transformers. And a lot of people just click the dislike button. You son of a bitch! You can't talk bad about Optimus Prime. But Megatron, Soundwave, all the way. Maybe not so much Starscream. He was a jackass. Anyway, looking forward to this. It looks like it's the combos honestly do look a little bit silly with Optimus Prime punching and kicking and then turning into the truck and then slamming into it and flying around in the air. It's pretty ridiculous looking, but as long as it plays well, I really won't care that much. And I'll still pick it up because it's platinum and because it's 80s Transformers, but I'll gripe the whole time that I can't play Soundwave because Soundwave is the best Transformer of all time. Anyway, Transformers, definitely want to pick that one up. Next, Mirror's Edge Catalyst. So, Mirror's Edge, I did do a Let's Play of that, and I enjoyed the game. I definitely can see people's complaints that the combat just felt very clunky, because it did. The running and the parkour, I forgot the word. The parkour elements were fun. I enjoyed them, but I feel like too often I would kind of get in the flow of running and jumping and sliding and climbing, and then just kind of run up to a dead end. It's like, oh wait, now I have to figure out where I'm supposed to go. So it would kind of kill my flow. And of course you could go back and play it, but I wasn't that compelled or that interested to go back and play it again. But I did enjoy it. I really liked the graphical style, the way the colors and things were done. I really liked that a lot. I think that was very well done. And it gave the game a very unique, very distinct look. When you say an image from Mirror's Edge, there's no question. You immediately know what game it is. And Faith was a cool character. The story was pretty predictable. It wasn't that great. Rhianna Pratchett is not involved in the second one, which I find probably kind of insulting to her. I mean, from what I've gathered, the first game's story not being very good wasn't really her or the other writers. I don't know if there was more than one, but it wasn't really their fault because there was some information problems and time constraints and all these other things. But long story short, it wasn't really what they wanted it to be. This new game is a reboot, which they only had one game. Well, one game in a mobile port, if you count that. So, I mean, I'm okay with it being rebooted. They didn't really have much to build on. And sometimes you just need to say, you know what? That first try wasn't that great. Let's do it. Let's not try to patch it up and see if we can get it going again. Let's just do it again. So I'm fine with that. They're keeping Faith in as the main character. So I'm cool with that, and I'm definitely very interested. From what I've heard of people who've played it, I've heard nothing but praise from people who played it at E3, like the demo they had. So definitely looking forward to it, and again, will probably be a day one pickup for me. Next, I want to talk about Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, I guess it's called. I liked the reboot. Some people really didn't. I really don't understand why. I do feel like maybe this is unfair, but I feel like a lot of people who didn't like it were destined to not like it because it wasn't exactly like Tomb Raider 1. And I can understand that to some extent, but if you take it for what it is, I think it was a great game. The environments alone were amazing. I really like it. I mean, just graphically, it looked good. You know, the textures, blah blah blah. But the scenes and like the mountains and the wind blowing really hard and the shutters slamming against the walls because of the the strength of the wind, just amazing. Really, really well done. I enjoyed the combat. I think these types of games, in my opinion, shouldn't have a lot of combat, and I think this game probably had more combat than it really should have, but I enjoyed the combat enough to not be put off by it. The upgrade system was interesting, killing animals, all that. There were some obvious story issues as well. I felt like once they started to get more into the supernatural aspect, I was like, I wish they would have stuck more with... Obviously not realistic. There's no way Laura's would have been able to walk, let alone speak, or not eat through a straw by the time she got to the end of that story, because she was beat up something fierce, unless she was like secretly Wolverine. But obviously you kind of look past that kind of thing. But once you start, including spirits and stuff like that, I was a little disappointed. I was hoping there was going to be some kind of like logical explanation for the weird stuff going on the island. But and to be fair, the first Tomb Raider had dinosaurs and like these flying demon looking things. So it's definitely not like they stepped out of line with that part. But it's just a personal thing where I wish they wouldn't have. But again, not a big deal. I keep talking about the games I've played of the series. But yes, Rise of the Tomb Raider looks really cool. That's another thing that gets me about the Tomb Raiders or the Tomb Raiders that I've played, which again would be the remake of the first one and the reboot that just came out like 2 years ago. And, with the newer one, where she's like jumping from one thing to another or sliding down a rope and she's like looking down. There's like this big chasm. Like, I actually like tense up when she's making those jumps, and I did when I played the Tomb Raider reboot, and to a lesser extent the reboot of the first game. I like tense up, and I don't do that in typical platformers or other games where there's jumping puzzles and things like that. I don't really like tense up like that, but like for like a split second, my brain's like, you're there, you're like making this jump over this deep chasm, and you've got like a quarter of a second to slam your pick into the wall, or else you fall to your doom. Like that, it really gets that for me, which is why I really liked, like I say, the reboot in the first game, and just from watching the video, I got that where she's jumping around. So I'm definitely looking forward to see Rise of the Tomb Raider. It's going to be Xbox One. This is one of the things that needs to fucking die. Is this exclusivity shit? It's like, oh well, it's Xbox exclusive, but it might be timed, it might be because there's like there's truly exclusive like Bloodborne, where it's not coming out anywhere other than PS4. There's console exclusive, which means it only is coming to PlayStation, but also PC, like Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter 5 is only coming to PlayStation 4 and PC, so therefore it's console exclusive. Then you have timed exclusives where, okay, it's timed only on this machine, but later on we'll release it to other things. And then there's timed console exclusive where it's like, okay, like the Dead Rising 3, where it came out on PC, or it came on Xbox One only, and then later on came out for PC but not for PS4. Just like so much of this crap, I'm so sick of trying to figure out. And this is one of the industry's lesser crimes, but it's just annoying, especially when companies like Microsoft flat out say they don't think it's their responsibility to tell you if it's timed exclusive or when it's coming out on other platforms, which fuck you for that, by the way. But I will probably end up getting it day one on Xbox One, because I think they've pretty much all but confirmed that at least initially the only way to play the game will be on Xbox One. So I will probably get it, and of course, let's play it. I want to play more Laura, and I want to do more Tomb Raider. It seems like a year from now, I'm going to be Tomb Raider slash Uncharted out because I'll have hopefully played through all 4 of the Uncharted and got this new Tomb Raider game. So I feel like I'll be like, okay, I'm good with this genre for a while. Next game I want to talk about is Shadow Warrior 2. Now, Shadow Warrior, I played the reboot on the channel, and I definitely think this is one of those games that just did not get enough press about it. I thought it was a great game. It felt great. The gun fighting felt great, and the sword fighting felt good. It was not a case of, oh crap, I'm out of bullets, or this enemy has this gimmick where I have to use the sword, so I'm just using it because I have to, then I'm immediately going to switch back to the sword. The sword actually had its own uses. The sword combat was fun. It was bloody, and it felt nice, like cut an enemy's limb or head off. You had the magic abilities to do things like create a shield or heal yourself, or do the 360-degree slash. Like, it just felt really good, and it felt like its own worthy member in your arsenal, right? Like, everything felt good, and like I said, the gun combat felt good. There was hidden things to find. I don't think it had regenerating combat. The combat was, nice and fast and furious. There was throwbacks to the original Shadow Warrior. It was a great game. It was great. It looked phenomenal. It looked like crap on YouTube, but in game it looked really good. It ran really good. Just a damn good game overall. And I just don't feel like it got enough positive press. I feel like a lot of people overlooked it. So needless to say, I'm very much looking forward to Shadow Warrior 2. They showed some gameplay off, including some co-op gameplay. It looks like you can have up to 4 players co-op, and the combat looks just as good as it did before. It's over the top, just like it was before, like with the reloading and some of the other stuff going on. Excuse me. And the co-op. Now, I've already talked to my friend Bro Control, and I'm going to try to get him to buy it so we can 2-player co-op. He didn't play the remake Shadow Warrior, but I'm going to see if I can't talk him into doing the co-op. But it's cool that they added the co-op. I'm a little confused, though, from listening to the presentation about how they're handling it, because they kind of talk about it like it's semi-open, so players can walk off on their own. Like, for example, he was co-oping with one person, and they found the body of a third player. So do you co-op in and then go do your own thing? I don't understand that. Obviously, I'm sure that'll be more clear as we get closer to release. But yeah, absolutely looking forward to Shadow Warrior 2, and almost certainly we'll doing a Let's Play on YouTube. Even though, unfortunately, YouTube, because of the very fast action on Shadow Warrior, it's going to make the game look terrible. So, oh well, it is what it is. Next up is the game I was about to delete off of my list until I found out that it's coming to Windows. That game would be Gears of War Ultimate Edition, which I believe, it shows you how much I looked into this, I believe is like the first 3. There's 3 of them, right? This first 3 games like remastered. Obviously, it's coming to Xbox One, but it's also coming to PC, which would be, again, I'm almost positive, the first time Gears of War has ever been available on PC. Now, anyone who's been on this channel long knows I do not like shooters, first person or third, where you have to use the controller. I prefer mouse and keyboard for shooters all the way. Now, I actually have played Gears of War 1 co-op all the way through. I played it with Bro Control, actually. He'd bought a 360 when they were new, and we picked the game up, we played through the whole thing, and I liked it. However, the whole time I'm aiming it in, especially when I was using the sniper rifle, I was like, man, this game's fun, but I would like it so much better if I had a mouse and keyboard, because the aiming is just so much better. But now that they're coming to PC, I might actually pick those up. In fact, there's a fairly decent chance that I'll go ahead and pick those up and play through them. Just so, because again, I feel like Gears of War is one of those iconic, maybe not quite iconic, but famous series in gaming. And I feel like I'm kind of missing out a little bit on having not played all of them. Again, I played the first one, so I get the idea. But I would like to catch up on the other 3, and this will be a perfect chance to do that. So I will most likely pick that up when it's released for Windows. Anno, there's a new Anno coming out. Now, they didn't show any gameplay, Even though I think it's safe to say it's going to be similar to the other Anno games, and most likely similar to Anno 2060 or whatever it is, or not. I don't know what it is, but Anno 2070 is the current one. So almost certainly going to be similar to that because it's in the future. Again, they didn't show anything about it, so I can't really much to talk about. All I can say is I'm looking forward to it, and I'm glad Ubisoft has finally got rid of that idiotic forced online bullshit they had when Anno first came out. However, they still have Uplay, so we'll still have to deal with that unless they've finally wised up and not forced you to use Uplay. But yeah, that's another one that I'm very interested in playing. And of course, how can I not talk about it, even though absolutely nothing of real value was shown? Dark Souls 3 has been announced, coming out next year, 2016, that is. Obviously looking forward to it, even with no gameplay shown. And we know what we can expect from Software at this point. I think 2 Dark Souls and a Bloodborne, I think we know where it's going to be coming. Honestly, and I do agree this is be too soon, I would have preferred Bloodborne 2. But again, obviously it'd be a little too quick to do that. I hope that they make more Bloodborns, because I prefer the fighting style of Bloodborne and the visual style of Bloodborne as well over Dark Souls. But I still think Dark Souls 3 is going to almost certainly be an incredibly long, phenomenal game. And I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably pick it up day one. I've got no reason to distrust from. Well, I guess that's not entirely true, since Dark Souls 2 for PC was not the greatest port, and they had that frame rate weapon glitch where you took like the thing about From Software, and I'm going to try not to go on a huge tangent here, but long story short, the thing that kills me about From is they make such wonderful games, but on the technical side, they really struggle with technical things. And whoever thought it was a good idea to have weapon durability damage be based on a per frame basis when the game was going to be coming to PC and they knew it was going to PC needed to be slapped in the face. Did nobody during all of their testing go, hey guys, PCs can actually handle more than 30 frames a second? How did they not think about that? And then they ended up they basically ignored the problem for a long time. And then when they did it on Xbox One, they're like, oh crap, we have to fix this now because it does more than 30. And I think they finally fixed it after over a year. So that definitely left a really bad taste in my mouth. It really felt like they were just lazy and just didn't want to fix it until they had to fix it. And like I said, they've definitely got problems with technical aspects. There's still some lag in Bloodborne. Not a lot, to be fair, not very often, but by now you'd think they'd have figured it out. And other things like the camera. Oh my God, the camera. But aside from all that, they make top-notch games with really, really interesting stories, and I like the way they tell the story, and with item descriptions and all that. And I expect more of that with Dark Souls 3. So I'll be. I guess they did have a demo of Dark Souls 3 at E3, but I haven't seen any footage of it. So anyway, obviously looking forward to that. And the last game I wanted to talk about isn't because I'm interested in it. It's because I find it an interesting topic of discussion. That game is No Man's Sky. I'm going to go with, and I'm not being contrarian to be contrarian, but with No Man's Sky, I got to say, I don't get it. They've shown almost nothing of gameplay every single time they talk about this game. And I need to make a tea time just to talk about this. And I'm not bashing the game. I'm just trying to logically analyze what they've given us and what it really means. But every time they show the game, they stress how big it is, how it's so huge. There's so many planets and so many systems that, no matter what, 5 years after release, 10 years after release, there will be planets that nobody has found because there's such an absurd number of systems that it would be near impossible for people to find every single one. That's cool. Don't get me wrong. That's amazing and mind-blowing that you can make a game that big. That's awesome. However, when pressed, it's like, okay, well, that's great, but what do you do? And it's like, oh, well, you can land on the planets, and it'll be like it'll tag you if you're the first person to ever discover it. It'll put a little tag that says "discovered by Vertigo Tea Party," and you can find unique life and scan it, and plants and trees, and you'll have all these different ecosystems on these different planets, and maybe different minerals. It's like, okay, but what do you do with that? Like, nobody just wants to go to planets and scan things and then move on to something else. And you're like, well, there's space battles. You can hop into space battles against other players or probably the AI. And, and they showed that a little bit, but it looked incredibly simplistic. Like, he literally was just like, pew, 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 pew. Like, there was no rolling around and shooting missiles and, tracking multiple. He was just like shooting straight ahead until he got bored with it and then moved on to a planet. So it's like, okay. And and they keep talking about vague things like, oh, there'll be trade. You can set up trade and this and that. But it's like, show us. Like, there's not a release date. To be fair, they haven't given a release date. But he said, they promised they're very close to giving us a release date. If they're getting close enough to give us a release date, unless it's like December 2016, how do you not have something substantial to show yet? How do you not have something that says, okay, you want to know what you do in this game? Here, let's show you. Even with something like Minecraft, right? You could show somebody like gathering resources and using those resources to build a house, to build, a crafting station, and then building tools, things like that. And to be fair, if Minecraft would have been shown at this show, like obviously way before it got popular, when it was still in alpha, I'd probably be thinking the same thing. Okay, this is great. You can explore, you can dig, you can gather resources, you can make tools, but now what? Like, what now? And obviously that game has done very, very well for itself, to say the least. And I enjoy it as well from time to time. I feel it very shallow, but I play it solo, so there you go. And I just feel like there's nothing that they've showed us with No Man's Sky to justify the hype that people have been giving that game. I feel like people are just hyped about how big it is. That you've got all these literally hundreds of thousands of planets to explore, and that it's so massive, no one, like, there will be parts that, when the real world blows up, there will still be areas of that game that have not been discovered by players. And I think people are getting like hyped about that idea. But again, what do you do? Like, who wants to just go to planet to planet to planet, scanning life and then going to a new planet? Where's the joy in that? Like, where is, like, I want to build use these resources to, build a city and bring in other players, and we get, trading with ourselves or trading with other planets. And, you've got to fight, enemy pirates to, have them stop from stealing your goods, and, building magnificent cities, and, fighting for awesome resources, stuff like that. Like, again, and I'm, keeping Minecraft in mind when I talk about these things, trying to think, okay, well, how does Minecraft relate to this? Like, why do people love Minecraft so much? And honestly, I can't even tell you. Even when I'm playing Minecraft and enjoying it, I can't tell you why I'm enjoying doing it. So it might scratch that same, like, intangible itch that Minecraft does. I'm just not seeing it. I just don't see it. I could be totally wrong. I might play it and be like, this is the best game ever made, and I just play that for the rest of my life. But I just don't see it, and I don't know. I just kind of wanted to talk about it. Again, I'm not slamming the game. I think, I hope it does well. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it turns out to be really, really fun when it comes out. I just think there's going to be a lot of really disappointed people when it comes out. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, that's my E3 kind of thoughts. Again, if I didn't talk about a game, I either wasn't interested about in it, or I just forgot. But I looked at a bunch of games before I started this, so I think I covered everything. But anyway, make sure you guys leave comments in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.